Clerk will call the roll.
Glenn Whitley, County Judge.
Here.
Roy Charles Brooks, Commissioner Precinct 1.
Present.
Andy H. Wynn, Commissioner Precinct 2.
Here.
Gary Fick is Commissioner Precinct 3.
Here.
J.D. Johnson, Commissioner Precinct 4.
Here.
Constitutes a quorum.
Thank you. Our invocation today will be delivered by Associate Pastor Michael Escalero from Bethesda Community Church, Fort Worth. After the invocation, please remain standing for our pledges. Thank you for coming out today.
Let's pray together. God of justice and mercy, we thank you so much today for another day of life you've given us. God, thank you for the opportunity to serve the people of our community. Would you help us today to act with character and conviction? God, would you help us to listen with understanding and with goodwill, to speak with charity and also with restraint? God, give us the spirit of service and remind us that we're stewards of your authority. Guide us to be the leaders that our community and the people that live here need. Help us to see the humanity and the dignity of every person that we come in contact with. Teach us how to love our neighbor as ourselves. And finally, Father, we ask that you would renew our strength today. God, that you would give us your joy in your presence. Lord, help us to be the men and women you've called us to be. We ask these things in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state under God, one and indivisible.
Pastor, thank you for coming out today. Thank you, Pastor. Tremanius.
Thank you, Your Honor. Members of the Court, we have several items as it relates to the agenda this morning. We'll start under the Administrator's Office, item 9A3. We're going to ask that we hold this until after closed today. We'll take this up after we come back from closed session. Also under the Administrator's item 9A13, which is amendment number 6 to the Refugee Services Lease. We're going to hold that for 1 week. Members of the Court, under Purchasing, item 9L1. This is the sale of recycled paper. There is a revised court communication in the folder this morning as relates to that. Also under Purchasing, item 9L2, which is RFP number 2016-101. We're going to ask that we hold that for a week. We'll have that back next week for you. And also under Purchasing, item 9L14. This is a consent item. There is simply a revised court communication in your red folder as it relates to that particular item. Your Honor, members of the court, I also like to once again remind the court that we go next Monday, the 8th, we go into budget hearings, and that will start at 9 o'clock in the morning here in the courtroom.
Really?
Yes, sir.
When are we going to get all budget book?
You should get that today.
Today?
Yes, sir.
Monday.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you. We have today, you have before you, court, the minutes of our regular meeting of July the 19th.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. We have several proclamations or resolutions today, as well as our employee recognition, also as well as a birthday. Commissioner Brooks is celebrating another birthday. I'm not going to tell you how many he's celebrating.
He's turning 49 today.
I'm sure. Well, I'm not going to go there. I'm just going to stop it right before I get myself in any more trouble.
Good.
Good.
Congratulations, he's now older than me.
For a brief period of time?
for a brief period of time.
Okay, well, I just wanted to, I thought I understood that, but I never know.
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday, Royce.
Thank you.
I'm not
Happy
going to even
Commissioner.
suggest singing, because I know how I sing, and you already had a group of folks sing happy birthday to you. And they sang much better than probably this august group would be able to sing.
Well, inasmuch as the Star Telegram doesn't like my singing very much, it's probably a good thing.
Commissioner Wynn and myself have a congratulatory resolution.
Yes, Your Honor. Would you please read that into the record?
And this is regarding the 30th anniversary of Mission Arlington. Tilly, why don't you just come on down here right now, and then I'll read this into the record. Whereas a former missionary, Miss Tilly Berger, returned home from South Korea in 1978 with the thought that if missions could be done in Korea, then they could be done in Arlington. And she began praying about how it could be accomplished. And whereas in 1986, with the support and assistance of the First Baptist Church of Arlington and Pastor Charles Wade, Miss Tilly, as she is affectionately known, started holding Bible study groups with the low-income families living in an apartment complex near the church. And whereas Miss Tilly discovered that many of the families she met with did not have enough food or shelter, so she set out to fill their needs. And whereas what started as a humble Bible class became Mission Arlington and has grown into a multi-million-dollar social services nonprofit agency. And whereas on a typical day, Mission Arlington helps hundreds of families receive aid, including assistance with rent or utility bills, food, clothing, shelter, school supplies, training, and transportation, and as a Christmas store and much more. And whereas Mission Arlington also provides a variety of programs and services, including dental and medical clinics, after-school programs, child care, and senior care. And whereas the faith-based social services model that Mission Arlington follows is admired and emulated across the country, now therefore be it resolved that we, the Commissioners Court of Tarrant County, do hereby congratulate Tilly Berger, Mission Arlington, and their army of volunteers on the occasion of their 30th anniversary of extraordinary service to the community, and are honored to recognize them for the exceptional work they continue to do. In witness of whereof we have hereunto set our hands and caused the seal of Tarrant County to be affixed this 2nd day of August, 2016.
Ms. Tilly Berger, I refer to her as Mother Teresa of Tarrant County. And I think it's a very, very accurate statement because of the past 5 years working and knowing you, Ms. Tilly. You have demonstrated a quiet strength, a soft commitment to servicing our community, the disadvantaged families, the children, and so forth. And you have been doing so in a way that is extremely graceful, very humble. You collaborate, you partner, you work with everybody else, and you always put the needs of other people, other community groups above your own. And Ms. Tilly, you are truly, in my heart, the Mother Teresa of Tarrant County. And I want to honor you, not for your own glory, but for the glory of our common Creator. And thank you, Ms. Tilly.
Second.
Motion passes unanimously. Tilly, why don't you come up here, because I think all the court would like to have be in this picture. And Tilly is one of those people who I refer to as the reason, the excellent example why government shouldn't be involved in everything. She is one of those people, when you know she's coming towards you, you just know you're fixing to say yes to something. You don't know exactly what it may be, but you know you're fixing to say yes to something. And if government was in it, it would be easy to say no, but when Tilly's in it, you know that you're fixing to do something good. So thank you very much for being here. Come on over here. We'll Everybody get it? All right. I'll let you go back down there. Hang on, take another one. Wait a minute, we're taking one, well, we were taking, go ahead. You can go down there and you can say whatever you want to say. I'm gonna bring that down. Okay.
Let me just share with you guys that what an honor for us to be part of a community and a family that we know God put together. And so we are humbled to know that the kind of support, the kind of unity can only come from God. And you have recognized this in a community that wants to serve. Everybody out here has a place, an important part of doing what we believe God's called us to do. So I just want to say thank you from the bottom of my heart for making this possible today. And a lot of folks have said, how about 30 more years? And this being your birthday, they're talking about age. And I can't imagine 30 more years of work. Okay? So thank you, guys. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Tilly.
Ms. Tilly, you are an inspiration to keep adding years of service. Thank you.
The next is a, Commissioner Wynn, I believe you have a congratulatory resolution.
Yes, sir, Your Honor. Today we have the great opportunity to congratulate a great organization, the United States Pan-Asian American Chamber of Commerce, on their 15th anniversary of holding the Southwest Annual Business Expo. As most of you probably know, the Asian American community is the fastest growing demographic in the state of Texas and in the United States. It is also known as the model minority, and it is also known as the silent minority. And truly, in the past 15 years, Ms. Grace McDermott and her army of volunteers has been working quietly in the background, serving the needs of the Asian business community. And today, on this great and grand occasion, on the 15-year anniversary of putting together the Business Expo, which I know is very difficult to do, costly, time, resource, and so forth. And you and your organization, with very, very little resource, because we talk all the time about the lack of resources, money, volunteers, and so forth, and you stuck with it for 15 years. It has now become a highlight for the Asian American business community. It is a gateway for manufacturers, businesses, technology companies, and so forth to come together and work together to basically build a stronger local economy. So I want to, Your Honor, can you please read that resolution into the
You bet.
record?
United States Pan-Asian American Chamber of Commerce Southwest Annual Business Expo 15th Anniversary. Whereas the United States Pan-Asian American Chamber of Commerce, USPAACC, is the oldest and largest Pan-Asian American organization representing Asian American businesses in the United States, and whereas USPAACC represents all dimensions of Asian Pacific Island heritage owned businesses and welcomes all people who believe in the power of diversity and inclusion. And whereas USPAACC's growth over the years has been made possible through the dedicated leaders and members across the country having shared values, common goals, and their promotion of Asian American businesses and their partners. And whereas as a part of their strategic plan for growth in the Southwest region, the USPAACC Southwest President Grace McDermott along with a planning committee, organizes an annual business expo. And whereas the annual business expo is a platform for participants to find new business opportunities, discuss issues, provide solutions, and acquire information on procurement forecasts and schedules from corporate and government partners. And whereas August 2016 will mark the 15th anniversary of the event, and the USPAACC Southwest Business Expo continues the tradition of helping connect Asian American suppliers and entrepreneurs with serious buyers and key decision makers from corporate America and government agencies. Now therefore be it resolved that the Commissioners Court of Tarrant County do hereby congratulate the USPAACC Southwest on the occasion of the 15th anniversary of their annual business expo and wish them continued success. In witness whereof, we have hereunto set our hands and caused the seal of Tarrant County to be affixed this second day of August 2016.
And I move for its approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. Grace, come on down.
Take a quick picture. Is that okay? Sure. She's my aunt, by the way. No, she's not.
She looks like your younger sister.
I was going to say oldest daughter, but that works.
Good morning, Commissioners. Thank you so very much. It's an honor to be here and to receive this proclamation. Following Miss Tilly, I feel like my work is really very insignificant. But we try hard, and Commissioner Andy Wynn is correct. Asian American, we work hard, and we do a lot to take care of the family and the community, and we hope that what we do would help to propel the economy in the U.S. And so with that, I just want to say thank you again. And
Can you talk about the expo and maybe
sure.
do a
You
plug
did
for
so
it?
good already. You also, I feel like, But our expo is an annual event. And the main purpose of that is to link the Asian small businesses with corporate buyers, corporate and government buyers. We want to push these doors open for Asian small business to have a seat in front of them, to sell to them, to sell their products and services. And in turn, you realize that Asian actually make up of 52% of all small business start up in the country. So that is very significant.
And when is it?
And it's going to be at the Arlington Convention Center, and you are all invited. And we're very much looking forward to it.
What day?
August the 11th.
August the 11th.
August the 11th, yes.
Right, August the
It's on a
11th.
Thursday, and we have some real good keynote speakers. The DFW Airport CEO and Baylor Scott White are both going to be speaking at this expo because we do want to engage community organization to work with us. So, it's going to be an all-day event, 9 a.m. to 4 p.m.
And I want to thank Tarrant County Purchasing Department, Mr. Jack Beecham, and his department for participating in this expo for the past few years.
And thank you so very much for that support. It's very, very important to us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner Fickus.
Yes, we presented a resolution on Thursday evening to the Texas Transplantation Society, who was holding their annual conference in Fort Worth at the Hilton, and Dennis Singleton from the city was there, and I was there representing the county, and I would move for approval of their resolution.
Second.
We have a motion second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. Now comes one of my favorite times of the month, and that's when we get to recognize our employees for their years of service. As we do that, and we are a family here in Tarrant County, and it's good to see Jeannie here today. Welcome back. The routine for you rookies, the 5-year folks, is that we'll call your name or what sounds like your name, and in this particular instance, that's an important announcement. So as you hear your name called or where you should fit in the alphabet, please stand up. And then once we've recognized all of that particular group, then we will congratulate you, and then we'll move on to the next group. And you'll know when those names are coming up, because these two on my left will snicker because they'll see one coming up. Our first of our 5-year employees is Amanda Owl. That's probably the first one that I messed up, and there she is. Yes, Amanda, I know I messed that one up. I'm sorry. She is with Precinct 2. Then Brittany Bobbitt, District Clerk's Office. Brittany. Rachel Cook, Sheriff's Office. Felicia Edwards with Juvenile Services. She's here. Dubali Estramira. Okay. Go ahead and tell me how.
It's Juvenile Estramira.
Yeah. Just what I said in my mind. Jason Franklin with Facilities Management. There's Jason. Ivan Galvin with the Sheriff's Office. Beverly, is it Honkamp? Yeah, you just shook your head like that to make me feel good. District Clerk's Office. Paul Killian with the Sheriff's Office. Kerry King with the Sheriff's Office. Elliot Lester with the Sheriff's Office. There he is. Mark Lewis with Public Health. Alejandro Morales, Information Technology.
Very good.
Well, I just had to get the running start on that, Alejandro. Ronald Pearson, County Court at Law number 3. Patricia Rangel with Public Health Department. Rodrigo Rombles, Sheriff's Office. Ronald Solis, Human Services. Maria Cerna, Elections. Derek Smith, Sheriff's Office. Lloyd Taylor, Facilities Management. Where's Lloyd? Julia Testa, Auditor's Office. Rhonda Young, the 236th District Court. We've got a lot of the 5-year folks here. I really appreciate y'all being here today, and congratulations. Okay, y'all can be seated. These are the rookies. You got to remember that. I mean, you know. Now for our 10-year employees, Kimberly Bramlett, the Auditor's Office. Nelda Cacciato, is she here? Did I do all that and she's not here?
Is there a Nelda here?
Is there a Nelda here? She's with Criminal Courts Administration, and tell her that I really messed up her name. Cheryl Carver, Sheriff's Office. Jackie Combs, Sheriff's Office. Judith Estrada, Public Health Department. Mark Evans with the Sheriff's Department. Jamie Frazier with the Sheriff's Office. Martha Gutero from Public Health. Juanita James from the Sheriff's Office. Susan Labrid, Sheriff's Office, or some similar pronunciation. Frank Lopez from Facilities Management. Frank. Charles Norton from the Sheriff's Office. Paul Perez from the Sheriff's Office. Judge Beth Polis from the 324th District Court. Kyle Russell from Precinct 4. Kyle Sexton from the Sheriff's Office. and Marcus Womack from the Sheriff's Office. These are our 10-year employees. Now for our 15-year employees, Aaron Barnes, Information Technology, Rachel Calderon from Criminal Courts Administration, Justin Davis from the District Clerk's Office, John Ellers from Information Technology, Teresa Leon from Public Health Department, Teresa Parsons, Precinct 3, Sherrod Poe from Juvenile Services, Leslie Young from the 233rd District Court. These are our 15-year employees. Let's give them a hand. Now for our 20-year employees, Julie Creamer from the Criminal District Attorney's Office, Donna Krall from Public Health Department, Rosalind Liggins from the Sheriff's Office, Frida McCaskill from the Auditor's Office, Maria Riveras from Sheriff's Office, Lance Rodman from the Sheriff's Office, Diana Sanladner. Yeah, see, these pronunciations sometimes mess me up. Is it Sonia Luckner? Well, I got closer than I thought I'd gotten. From the Public Health Department. These are our 20-year employees. Congratulations. One of these days, I'm just going to report in sick or missing for action on them.
You nailed that last one.
Remember me in your prayers. Now for our 25 and 30 years, the first is Wendy Hamilton from the County Clerk's Office. Now the one, Olga's not here today, so before I hear these whispers in my ear, I don't think Olga's here today, is she?
We're praying for you. That's
Yeah, well, I understand. Wendy has been with the county for 25 years. She started out in the county clerk's office as kind of a temporary clerk. And she said at the end of the first 2 weeks, they threw her a party and asked her to work for a couple more months. And then after a couple of more months, they threw her another party. And the next thing she knows, she's been here a little longer than 25 years. And it's, it's kind of like that. I can't tell you how many people I talk with who said, well, I really didn't think I was going to be with the county that long. Maybe, come on as temporary. Loves it, does a good job. We recognize they do a good job, and then we try to keep them for life. And many of them, especially when we get down to this level. I mean, we've got 40, we recognize somebody with 45 years this year. And Wendy's on her way. She's going to probably be here 50.
Bad chance.
Well, you never know. I mean, she's now the assistant manager in the criminal courts area. She said, I love the atmosphere of the county, the people that she's had a chance to work with, always something new. And I think that's a statement that's made by somebody who basically is always looking for, a challenge and doesn't shy away from, if somebody comes in, they don't push them off to somebody else. They say, great, this is something new, and we're going to figure out how to help that citizen out. She said, I can't imagine having worked anywhere else. She did say that she was beginning to maybe look at thinking about retirement. She said the thing that I remember when I started out were the supervisors and the folks who've been here for a number of years and who were good examples to me and helped me out. And she says, as I have moved to the 25-year mark, she says, I now try to be that good example, and I try to be the person that helps the younger folks that are coming in, and just to be that same type of a person. Wendy, thank you. Thank you for the 25 years you've given the county. Next is John Keefer from the Constable, Chief Deputy Precinct 7. There's John. Started out in the old jail, went from there to the correction center and into the pods. Was in booking for a while. Was over in got transferred over to the courts. Then in '96 went back to patrol. '99 went into as a kind of a canine handler in the narcotics area. Then in 2006 went back to patrol. Was promoted to sergeant. And then in 2013 he transferred into the constable's office. Memorable moments, he said, was on one of their seizures was 300 pounds of marijuana. And so he said that that was something that he certainly remembered. Always had a chance, what he's really enjoyed the most was having a chance to help people. The different jobs that he's had over the years. He said in the patrol area, he's had a chance to wear many different hats. And I think, you've got different roles. You've got the roles of helping people. You've got the roles of making sure that those folks who are not helping people are stopped. So there is a lot of different roles that you play in that particular area. He has two kids, one 23 and one 17. That's a high school senior. And as we kind of discussed, those high school seniors know it all. And they think that their parents are probably the dumbest people that walk the face of the earth. But it's amazing how wise and how much wiser we get over the next 4 to 5 years. So, John, we really, really thank you for the 25 years you've given to Tarrant County. Next is Brian Lachey. Sheriff's now in the security part, celebrating 25 years. He started in the city of Covington and worked in the Arkansas Department of Corrections for a while, and then he came to Tarrant County and started in the Belknap area. Was in the Corrections Center, was in patrol, and then since September of last year moved over to the Judicial Security area. When I asked him about memorable moments, he said, when he was in the jail, it was when all the folks that were kind of involved in that Coslow murder case, he was around them in the jail. And then he also remembered that he started in patrol, and his second night in patrol, he was out and had an opportunity to seize 30 pounds of marijuana from an old abandoned house. He said what he likes most was the people that he's had a chance to work for. You may remember that last year we recognized him for basically pulling up to the scene and of an accident, and there was a burning car, and he and other folks kept working in certainly their lives in danger to make sure that the individual inside of that car got out. And as a result of that, he experienced first and second degree burns. We really owe Brian a debt of gratitude for his service, his 25 years of service to Tarrant County. Thank you very much for being here. Next is Sheila Washington. There's Sheila. Started out in the juvenile probation area and worked there for about 1.5 years, then transferred over to the DA's division, still in the juvenile area. Now is the legal secretary in that particular area. When I asked her what she liked most, it was the job, the people that she's had a chance to work with. As many people say, time has really kind of flown by. Over the last, again, she's one that loves working, loves the job that she's working for. She says, at this point in time, I'm certainly not looking toward retirement. I'm just enjoying very much what I do. She has a daughter that just graduated from high school and is starting at UNT this fall, so I know we got her for at least another 4 to 5 years. Sheila, we appreciate and thank you very much for the 25 years you've given us. Last is Mcdaniel in the Sheriff's Office, Sheriff North Patrol. It's the livestock, what we call the leaper. He said he started in the Sheriff's Department in the Belknap Jail and went to patrol. Believe was actually on the SWAT team for a while. Then he went to courts, and now he's back in the Leap area, and also I think back on the SWAT team. I believe he said. Most memorable moments, he said, chasing an emu for about 30 minutes. When I asked him what he liked most, he said he'd made a lot of good friends, that it's been a good and steady job, and that he's very grateful to have had the chance to work for Tarrant County. When I asked him kind of what happened over the last 5 years, he said, there's been a couple of times that he's been called out to capture these, animals that were let loose, and he said in a couple of those instances, I think the cows in this instance were just as excited to get back in their trailer as he was to get them back in the trailer. It was kind of like, would you just get the gate down so I can get in? He was out on the 4th of July chasing a cow in the rain. I think it was real early in the morning on that particular. He said, I just really enjoy the opportunity to work for the county and the things that we've had a chance to accomplish. Mac, we thank you very much for the 30 years of service you've given to Tarrant County. We have refreshments in 504C back here. We again want to thank you very much for your service, and we'll look forward to seeing, I hope, many of you, if not all of you, in another 5 years. Thank you. There goes Wilder, so you better hurry.
Ronnie?
Huh?
Isn't that Ronnie Long back there?
Where?
Standing next to Steve,
Commissioner Brooks.
walking out the door?
Thank you, Your Honor.
Yeah, I don't know what they're doing here.
I am reliably informed that we have a new Director of Juvenile Services. And I would like to congratulate Mr. Benny Medlin. Stand up, Benny. For taking the helm of that department, and hopefully we'll be moving in new directions. Congratulations.
Congratulations. Now, the juvenile board made that selection, I guess, last week or week before last. Time flies when you're having fun. So congratulations again, and we'll look forward to you being up here, and you may be up here in a few moments. Are you up here in a few moments? You? No. Well, again, congratulations. Commissioner Wynn, I think you wanted to consider closing the court today, and go ahead.
We have a community leader in Arlington who recently passed away in a tragic boat accident. His name was Dan Mahork, and Judge and we attended his funeral, and it was very uplifting. It's a tragic and a big loss for the city of Arlington and for Tarrant County and for the Arlington Chamber of Commerce. Dan was an avid supporter of Mission Arlington and Miss Tilley's work as well. So in his honor, if it's okay with the court, we'd like to close this court in memory of Dan Mahork.
Would it be acceptable to add someone else?
Sure. Yes.
Okay. I'd like to also add Art Berger, the husband of Judge Nancy Berger, passed away, I believe Monday, yesterday, or might have been Sunday evening, but so if we could add Art, he was a great guy. And,
we did
they
not know.
lived in Bedford, so.
He's a CPA.
CPA, right. So we should.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I think that'd be good, so if you'll make note of both those individuals. And please keep both of the families in your prayers, and certainly Judge Berger and as a member of our Tarrant County family. Court members, you have before you the consent agenda.
Move approval.
Second.
We did that already. We'll do it again.
No, we ain't done the consent. Have we done the consent agenda?
Not yet.
I know, we're gonna do I'll go back and do that in a minute. I could tell they were looking at me. So we've got a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda. Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. I would move that we receive and file the employee recognition.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. Y'all feel better down there now?
Yes.
Things going here, I know. Now, you don't look like GK, but I'm going to trust that you know what you're doing.
We're going to do public hearings.
Oh, well, I guess we got a bunch of those, don't we?
Did I jump out of line?
Those employee recognitions just, take their toll.
Rough.
They're rough. Yeah, especially from your seat. Go right ahead.
Thank you. Good morning, members of the court. I'm here today for 4 public hearings. We'll start with Precinct 1, Rendon New Hope at Hopper. This intersection is currently a 2-way stop. We are requesting your approval to make it a 4-way stop to improve safety.
I will open the public hearing at this time and ask if there's anyone here wishing to speak to this matter. There appearing to be none, then I will close the public hearing for any action the court might wish to take.
Your Honor, this is an intersection at which over a period of years we've had a number of accidents and even a few fatalities. It's well past time that we did something about that, and adding a 4-way stop to what is already a 2-way stop intersection will probably go a long ways toward improving the safety. So I move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
The next public hearing is also in Precinct 1, focused on Pyramid Acres as a subdivision out there. We have several, I think 9 different intersections out there. Most of these are T intersections, but they're on horizontal curves. We're seeking your approval to install the stop signs at these locations as we have recently paved these roadways.
I will open the public hearing at this time and ask if there's anyone here wishing to speak to this matter.
Probably this one.
There being none, then I will close the public hearing and await any action at the court.
Again, for public safety reasons, I move approval of the placement of these stop signs.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
The third location is Mitchell-Saxon Road in Precinct 1, from Rendon Road to Rendon New Hope Road. Recently, our records, we have discovered in our records, it's posted at 35, but we have no official record of that. We did a speed study to validate that posting. It is accurate at 35 miles an hour, and we're seeking your approval for that to be official on the record.
I'll open the public hearing at this time. Are there anyone here wishing to discuss this matter? There being none, then I will close the public hearing.
This is a matter of affirming officially what is already being done in practice. I move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
The fourth and final location is in Precinct 4, the intersection of Scotland Avenue and Ryder Road. There's a new subdivision being constructed near this intersection on the northeast corner, Craft Farms. Due to the increased traffic, we are recommending the installation of a stop sign to control the additional traffic that will be coming out of that subdivision.
I will now open the public hearing and ask if there's anyone here wishing to speak to this matter. There appearing to be none, I will close the public hearing and ask for any action.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Manius.
Thank you, Your Honor. Members of the court, we have two additional items to bring to you this morning. The first one concerns the refunding of bonds that the county has issued previously. We're requesting that the Commissioners Court adopt an order authorizing the issuance of Tarrant County, Texas Limited Tax Refunding and Improvement Bonds, Series 2016. Also to specify the terms and features of said bonds, levying a continuing direct ad valorem tax for the payment of said bonds, and resolving other issues incidental and related to the issuance, sale, payment, and delivery of said bonds, including the approval and execution of a purchase contract and escrow agreement. I'm going to ask Ms. Alexander to come forward in just a second, but what we are doing, we are going to be refunding about $65 million. And I want to thank Mike Wilson with J.P. Morgan because they're going to purchase that debt. We believe that with our interest rate is going to be 1.48%, with an all-in rate of 1.52%. We will be saving approximately $12 million in interest in doing this. We will not be extending the length of the debt. It'll be paid off in its original timeline. And so our request is that you approve this order. Ms. Alexander, do you have any other comments?
I don't have any questions.
Ms. Alexander is here to answer any questions you may have.
I'd like to know who the underwriting team is.
Sir, it's actually a private placement with J.P. Morgan, so there was not a public offering with an underwriting team.
Okay.
Move approval.
Second. We have a motion second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Okay. If we can go to item 2, I'd like to remind the court that at the last meeting, you heard presentations from 2 different firms as it relates to a RFP dealing with strategic planning of facilities, delivery of services for the hospital district. And at that time, you all said that you wanted to complete the evaluation today so that we can move forward on this. I'd like to give you a few documents first. Firms that we looked at were Carl Salmon and Health Management Associates. What I'd like to do is to give you the evaluations. these firms were evaluated originally by a team that was made up of representatives from JPS, representatives from the county, including the purchasing department and our office. And you can see what those evaluations were there. These are the evaluation forms that we gave out 2 weeks ago. You to consider. These are the same criteria as the first 3 criteria of the evaluations that staff has performed.
Can I ask a question on your price?
Yes.
It's valued at 25%. How did you get to the fact that of the 2 that we were evaluating, that neither one of them got over 15%?
There were a total of 5 RFPs responses that we evaluated, and these were the 2 top points that 2 that came out on top of those 5.
So what I'm assuming then you mean is that of the other 3, they were either all lower or at least there was someone in there who got a 25%.
There was someone who got a 25%.
Okay.
Is it not possible for multiple companies to get 25%?
No. The way that the evaluation process occurred, and I'm going to ask purchasing to come up and explain a little bit about that formula, but basically it was a formula that took into consideration the lowest, and then it was a division of that by the other scores to give you a percentage, and it was multiplied by 25%. That's how we got those numbers. So I will tell you, though, that in looking at all of the firms, these were the top 2 firms by far as qualifications and ability to perform the work. Was that correct on that?
Well, this is strange.
Looking at the evaluations that the long range, that the evaluation committee came up with, one could quibble about the percentages up or down, but I think they ended up in the right place. All of the, in my estimation, all of the favorables were on the health management associate side, and I would move that we award the contract to them.
I'll second.
Go ahead. Do you want us to fill out this form and then, or you want to just go ahead and make a selection right now?
I think if you're ready to make that selection now, what I would suggest that your motion be that we move forward with final contract negotiations with HMA.
What he said.
That was his motion. I'll second that.
Thank you, sir.
We have a motion to second. I certainly agree. I was impressed with HMA's focus on Tarrant County and not just regionally or anything along that lines, and their recognition that we are a safety net, and they seem to be more detailed in the financial part of the deal.
Absolutely. All of that.
Yep. Any other discussion or comments? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Just for your record. Want to do?
Yeah, you can have mine too.
You want these back?
I'll get next block.
Ms. Tidwell.
We have 2 items that we're asking the court to consider this morning. The first is to receive and file the Tarrant County financial statements for the period ended June of 2016.
Move to receive and file.
Second.
A motion second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
And the other item, we're asking the court to receive and file the auditor's report of the county clerk's records preservation fund, and you have the clerk's response attached.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote.
Thank you.
Motion passes unanimously. Budget and risk management. Good morning.
Howdy.
Good morning.
Howdy.
The Risk Management Board is recommending the payment of 3 claims to Mary Larson, Roberta Workman, and Susan Esters, and Daniel Lester in the amounts listed on your court communication.
Move approval.
Second.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Ms. Wilson?
We're requesting the expenditure of funds for the bringing Michael Morton in as a speaker. Michael Morton, as you will remember, was convicted in 1987 and sentenced to 25. He actually served 25 years confinement in the penitentiary for the death of his wife, the murder of his wife, and he was innocent. At the conclusion of his sentence, at the end of all the hearings that were involved in that, it was found that the prosecutor in that case actively withheld evidence. The prosecutor was thereafter, he'd become a judge and was jailed. You remember that Judge Lewis Stearns from here actually did that proceeding. Michael Morton is the reason behind the Michael Morton Act that was passed by the legislature and took effect in September of 2014. That act has made a huge difference in how we process our cases, and it actually has led to a rather large backlog in our courts and in our office, because the Michael Morton Act requires that the DA's office not just have an open file policy, but that we actually gather from all the police agencies everything that they have and provide it to the defense. Let me suggest it may be part of the reason you have an increase in defense attorney fees. Provided to the defense, as well as file a list with the court at plea of every piece of evidence that has been gathered and provided. We're asking him to come speak to us because of the ethical implications of what he's done and what he's been through. He is the reason for the Michael Morton Act. Sometimes in our office, we think of the Michael Morton Act and just how tough it's been on us as an office and the implementation of it. But it's very instructive to us generally to hear what he has to say about what he went through and how important it is that prosecutors be absolutely ethical. We don't have a problem with that in our office, but it's always good to have those ethics hours and that ethics training. He's an excellent speaker. He spoke at the State Bar Association meeting here in Fort Worth a few months ago, and I would actually invite the 5 of you to come speak, to come listen to him also. We'll send you the notifications of his appearance, and that's our request for those funds, to be used for those.
Move for approval.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion?
Yeah, I'd like to ask the criminal district attorney to please set aside the feelings of the office about the additional work burden and actually listen to Mr. Morton.
Well,
and try to feel and put yourself in his shoes and know where he's coming from.
You know,
He didn't have anything to do with the additional work burden. That's not his problem.
Well, it's interesting because he typically says he's Michael Morton, he's not the Michael Morton Act, right?
Right.
But it's so important because I don't think that we don't, and perhaps that got enhanced and I didn't mean it to. We bear the responsibility of dealing with that law, and we do it every day, and we're not complaining, right? What we are doing is trying to make sure that we all understand why we got here. And I think it's just a great opportunity for our whole office to hear him.
Is that actually also considered training, ethics training?
Yes, we're applying for CLE ethics hours.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. Mr. Phillips.
morning.
Good morning.
Morning.
It's requested that Commissioners Court approve a professional services contract with HDR Architecture for architectural pre-design services for the Juvenile Center project included in the 2006 Capital Improvement Program.
Move for approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you, David.
Ms. Glenn.
I move to receive and file the personnel agenda.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to receive and file the personnel agenda. Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Good morning and thank you.
Good morning.
So we have 3 additional items. Item 2, we're asking the court to approve a waiver of terminal benefits for the district clerk's office. The district clerk is requesting this waiver effective August 3rd. He's requesting a waiver of 384 vacation hours as detailed in your court communique. We're estimating the net cost to the general fund will be approximately $8,800, including fringe benefits.
Move for approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Item 3, we're asking the court to approve an out-of-class pay extension for Justice of Peace Precinct 3. You've seen this one a few times. Judge Casey is requesting the extension of out-of-class pay for his assistant court manager who assumed the duties of his court manager. He's requesting an extension through the end of October at a cost to the general fund of approximately $1,700, including fringe benefits.
Move approval.
Second. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
And item 4, we're asking the court to approve salary administration guideline revisions. You have quite a bit of information there before you. Just a couple of points. These revisions reflect policy and procedural changes. Some the Commissioners Court has already approved. Also, we have some changes that ensure compliance with Department of Labor regulations. We are requesting that these revisions be approved effective October 1st.
Move for approval. The document included in the court support document there, that's the latest copy, right?
That's correct.
Okay.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Beecham.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
We have 7 items for your consideration this morning. Our first item is a bid award recommendation for bid 2016-187, the sale of recycled paper. Recommendation will be to award the high bidder, Pinnacle Recycling, who are purchasing our white ledger at the rate of $235 per ton.
Move approval.
Second. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
We can skip to item number 3, which is also a bid award recommendation for RFP 2016-113, RFP for elementary alternative school-based mentoring and advocacy. I never can say that. ADVOCACY services.
Advocacy.
Yes.
Thank you. I'll do that. Next time I have a hard name, would you go ahead and just stand up and pronounce it for me?
No.
Good.
Please. Awarding to Youth Advocate Programs Incorporated. If approved, we're seeking contract approval from the court.
Move approval.
Second. We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Item number 4 is another bid award recommendation for bid 2016-114, signing a contract for lawn treatment. Recommendation be to award a per enterprise basis, awarding to a company called True Green.
Move for approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Are they basically going to just do all the locations within the county, or is this a specific?
Precinct 2 utilizes them as well as facilities management.
Okay. Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Item number 5 is another bid award recommendation for bid 2016-152, the signing of contract for flexible road-based materials. Recommendation be to award on a per enterprise basis, awarding to the 7 primary vendors as shown in the court communique.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Item number 6 is also a bid award recommendation for bid 2016-155. This is our annual contract for armored car services. Recommendation be to award a pre-enterprise basis, awarding to Trinity Armored Security Incorporated.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Item number 7 is a bid award recommendation for RFP 2016-172.
Take your time now.
Sir?
Take your time.
I got this one.
Okay.
Probabilistic genotyping software for the ME's office. Recommend to award a company called Niche Vision Forensics, the amount of $25,000. In Arkansas, this will tell you who your cousins are.
Move approval.
Second.
Or not.
We have a motion and a second for this important item. Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Our last item, number 8, is again a bid award recommendation for bid 2016-174. It's on your contract for signpost and anchor material breakaway style posts. Recommendation be toward a pre-enterprise basis. Selected as our primary vendor, Allied Tube and Conduit. As our secondary vendor, Road Runner Traffic Supply.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Vote. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you, Jack.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jack.
Okay. We're going to try this again. Good morning.
Good morning.
We are requesting that the Commissioners Court approve for recording in the plat records of Tarrant County, Texas, the final plat for Lot 89, Block 1 of Hills of Gilmore Creek. If this approval is granted, it will fulfill the requirement needed by the property owners to acquire a septic.
We know what we're voting on now, don't we?
Yes.
We, me and you.
Yes.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
That was much easier. Okay. Commissioner Johnson.
I have 2 interlocal agreements, one with the City of Azle and one with the City of Saginaw. Have these been approved by the DA's office?
Yes.
Move approval of item 9P1, A, B, C, and D.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. Any appointments?
You got one.
I got one.
Can we hold off on appointments till after close?
Sure, that'll be fine. Moving on to the claims, including the addendum.
Move approval of the claims, including the addendum.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the claims, including the addendum. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. Briefing items, Mr. Mays?
Your Honor, could we take a small break before we
Sure.
take on the briefing item?
No problem.
Thank you.
Clean.
Briefing items, Mr. Manius.
Thank you, Your Honor. Members of the court, we have 2 items we'd like to bring to you today. The first is a update and a report on the Tarrant County Jail Use Study, which was conducted by Tarleton State University. Dr. Hollis is here to address the court at this time.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
How are you?
Good.
Good.
Great.
Welcome back, Dr. Hollis.
Thank you, Commissioner. I'm very glad to be here again. So I'm here today to brief you on the findings of the Tarrant County Jail Use Study conducted by faculty at Tarleton State University in Fort Worth.
Thank you.
I'm going to begin with a short overview of the study findings and recommendations, and then I will address any questions, comments, or concerns that you might have. I apologize for the lengthy reading that I have given you, but the subject matter that we have covered has been rather extensive in and of itself. So, recently I was reading a book by Brian Stevenson called Just Mercy, and he states that my work with the poor and the incarcerated has persuaded me that the opposite of poverty is not wealth, the opposite of poverty is justice. I've come to believe that the true measure of our commitment to justice, the character of our society, our commitment to the rule of law, fairness, and equality cannot be measured by how we treat the rich, the powerful, the privileged, and the respected among us. The true measure of our character is how we treat the poor, the disfavored, the accused, the incarcerated, and the condemned. We are all implicated when we allow other people to be mistreated. The focus of the research I will be discussing today has been on examining the use of the Tarrant County Jail to determine how these poor, disfavored, accused, and condemned are being treated in this community in particular. And our goal has been to determine if there are areas where this treatment can be improved. Dostoevsky said that the degree of civilization in a society can be judged by entering its prisons. Here, we're studying the jails. The research presented here today focuses on these populations in an effort to examine potential overuse of the jail as it relates to public policy and public safety. The key research goals of this study included examining the jail use and different sources that contribute to the jail population, to examine key areas of concern such as disproportionate minority contact, over-incarceration of individuals with mental illnesses, inability of individuals to secure pretrial release, and other related factors. Evaluation of related programs, the development of data-driven approaches to address areas of concern identified, and an examination of bookings and length of stay in the county jail. At the outset, we developed a series of key research questions that drove this effort. These questions can be summarized by asking if we can simultaneously reduce the number of individuals booked into the county jail, decrease the amount of time individuals are spending in jail, increasing the number of releases from the jail, all while focusing on the goal of maintaining and/or increasing public safety. Some might ask how reducing bookends and releasing individuals from jail could increase public safety. These efforts can contribute to increased perceptions of procedural justice and legitimacy and trust in the justice system as a whole. This leads to greater compliance on the part of the citizenry, as seen in previous research and most recently in the Journal of Community Psychology paper published by Dan Kruger and colleagues. At the outset of this project, Mr. Les Smith provided us with this model of the various contributors to the county jail. The focus of enhancing community safety and reducing costs through the actions of the justice system has been a major focus of this research. We have examined intake, including the types of bookings, types of offenses, and types of offenders. We have examined the use of various forms of pretrial release and length of stay in the jail. We have also examined the connections between reentry practices and recidivism rates. So it's very exciting to be at the end of a study. That means most of the work is done. On average, the Tarrant County... Sir?
Hardly.
Okay. The initial work is done. How about that? On average, the Tarrant County Jail books in about 100 individuals per day. This pattern has remained fairly consistent since 2007. The percent capacity of the jail has slowly in recent years decreased, but it is holding fairly steady around 60 to 70%, and it has been on a slight uptick in recent months. On average, that's very slight though, not major. On average, just over half of the county jail population consists of those who have been charged with felonies who are either pre-trial, in trial, or not yet sentenced. The next two largest groups include sentenced felons and those who have been charged with misdemeanors who are either pre-trial, in trial, or not yet sentenced. The group of individuals charged with but not yet convicted of misdemeanors are a key concern in reducing the jail population. Many of these individuals are also identified as in need of mental health services. One key area of concern that emerged during this study was the ease of communications between different entities within the justice system, sometimes on things as simple as the data itself. It often came up that multiple entities were doing the same work in an unnecessary duplication of effort, or that multiple entities thought others were doing some work, yet no one was actually completing that task. Enhanced communication and cooperation between the various agencies and organizations would be beneficial to all involved. A second key area of concern that emerged was the lack of high-quality program evaluations. Although some program evaluations have been completed, many are dated and have focused on outcome evaluations with no focus on process evaluations or cost-benefit analyses. These cost-benefit analyses could be incredibly beneficial to your group in making future funding decisions. Charleston State faculty have applied for multiple grants to start this work. We are also currently engaged in some evaluations of local programs. We have started some of this work. From January 1st, 2013 through June 30th, 2015, a total of 92,366 unique individuals came into contact with the Tarrant County Jail System via the booking process. 68.4% of those individuals were white, 31.1% were Black or African American, and the remaining 0.5% were classified as other races. This compares to the county demographic makeup of 75.2% white, 16.2% Black or African American, and 8.6% other. Here it is important to highlight the finding that the representation of Black or African American individuals in the Tarrant County Jail is double the representation of this population in the county at large. This finding warrants further research and consideration to determine if there is a potential pattern of disproportionate minority contact in the county jail. We have applied for the W.E.B. Du Bois Fellowship through the National Institute of Justice to study this further. We should learn the status of this grant application by October or November at the latest.
How does this match with the sheriff's report that he gives us each year on his breakdown as far as arrests or stops or different things along that line?
I have not compared it to that, but I could if you would like for me to. That is something I can do.
Those are two different issues. This is studying jail population. What the sheriff gives us information on is actual police contacts, sheriff's department contacts on the street.
But most of the people who end up in jail are coming from one of the stops of either by the cities or by the sheriff's department. They don't just come and volunteer and say.
The overwhelming majority come from police agency stops, not from the sheriff's department.
And that's one of the things that we propose to address under the Du Bois Fellowship is the connection between the arresting agency and where folks are coming from in the county and how different agencies might be contributing to the jail population.
Okay.
Okay. That is the next step in this research that I intend to complete one way or another. The intersections of mental health and the criminal justice system are receiving increased attention throughout the nation at this time, including a proposed piece of legislation by Senator John Cornyn. Just over a quarter of the 92,366 individuals who have come into contact with the Tarrant County Jail System were identified as individuals who needed MHMR contact and assessment. Of those individuals identified by MHMR staff, nearly 25% were diagnosed with a serious mental health diagnosis. 15% were diagnosed as individuals with substance abuse concerns, and 4% had medical, intellectual disability, or cognitive impairment diagnoses. These individuals were responsible for relatively low volumes of major crimes. Early intervention and diversion programming could successfully reduce the impact of these concerns in the jail and in local communities. Here, early prevention is key. The examination of pretrial services indicated that most services are focused in the nearby city jails and the county jail. More jail in-reach programming would allow these staff to reach a greater number of individuals. We learned that information on socioeconomic status and resources is not currently systematically collected and stored in a way that would allow a determination of the relationship between release and socioeconomic status and resources. This is an important direction for future research in the county. It is not clear if the individuals who are being held in the jail during the pre-trial stage of the justice process are there because they cannot afford to be released. Between January 1st, 2010 and December 31st, 2015, 71% of pretrial releases were provided by bail bondsmen, followed by 11.6% by attorney bonds and 6.5% through cash bonds. 8.9% of releases were obtained through pretrial services department. It is interesting to note that Black or African American defendants were slightly more likely to not receive a bond of any kind compared to other races. Women were slightly more likely to secure release than males. Blacks and African Americans were slightly less likely to secure release through bail bondsmen, significantly less likely to secure release through cash bonds, and slightly more likely to secure release through pretrial services than whites.
Slightly more or slightly less?
For which one?
For the last one you mentioned.
Slightly more likely to secure release through pretrial services than whites.
Okay.
Are you comparing apple to apple?
Yes.
Okay, the same case, same degree of...
We have not drilled down to that level where we've differentiated it by offense type and that kind of thing, but I can.
Do you think that's important?
Yes, I do. At the first glance of the data and the analyses we've completed at this time, the majority of offenses for the Black and African American population tend to be concentrated in drug offenses and low-level misdemeanors.
Okay.
That it's kind of disproportionate that way. Additional findings are highlighted in the report, all 150 pages of it. However, this could reflect connections between socioeconomic status and ability to secure pretrial release, particularly given the increased likelihood for whites and other races to have access to cash bonds and bail bondsmen. Again, this warrants further research. Since recidivism has been highlighted in other briefings in this court, I will not spend a great deal of time on that here. We did confirm the recidivism rates found in Dr. Favello's study in the present research. Our findings with respect to reentry indicate clear needs to successfully reintegrate individuals. There are basic needs of ensuring that individuals have a job, housing, food, and reliable transportation post-release. It is also important to address community reintegration needs to allow individuals to successfully reacclimate to society and successfully contribute to their local communities post-release. I will now turn to a quick summary of the key items we highlighted in the proposed action plan. These are designed to be broad recommendations. A key component of the recommendations is the formal development of the subcommittees that were used in the study. In these subcommittees, the key individuals will work together in a collaborative attempt to address the recommendations provided in this report, identify any additional needs, examine feasibility, and work to implement any necessary changes, policies, or procedures. The key to success will be the development of a collaborative environment with buy-in from local agencies and organizations. These groups will need to work together to accomplish mutual goals without feeling a need for competition. This reflects a governing for results approach. The results raise some concerns with disproportionate minority contact that warrants further study and perhaps a targeted focus in Tarrant County. Resource coordination is a key need in Tarrant County that emerged in multiple components of the study. This would involve a central person as resource coordinator or office where any justice system agent or organization could call to find current information, resources, and contacts related to offender and agency needs. An example of this would be a central resource that police officers can call to find out what options are available to divert individuals who do not need to be justice system involved, such as those who are facing mental health challenges. Community reinvestment might involve redirecting money saved by further reducing the jail population to community-based crisis care centers and detoxification centers or community prevention programming. It is estimated that by reducing the disproportionate minority contact for low-level offenses and the low-level offenses that are attributed to the mental health population could potentially reduce the jail population by 20 to 30%. There is a clear need for enhanced data collection and data sharing. This was particularly apparent with respect to socioeconomic status and other key statuses that could indicate a person might have specific needs or might qualify for different resources and programs. A key strategy is to engage in community investment through prevention and intervention and community building through community empowerment. This would allow community members to address problems locally before they escalate to the level of needing justice system involvement. Brian Stevenson states, America's prisons have become warehouses for the mentally ill. Mass incarceration has been largely fueled by misguided drug policy and excessive sentencing, but the internment of hundreds of thousands of poor and mentally ill people has been a driving force in achieving our record levels of imprisonment. The free world became perilous for deinstitutionalized poor people suffering from mental disabilities. The inability of many disabled, low-income people to receive treatment or necessary medication dramatically increased their likelihood of a police encounter that would result in jail or prison time. Jail and prison became a state strategy for dealing with a health crisis created by drug use and dependency. The results of this study indicate a need for additional programming to respond to individuals with mental health diagnoses through prevention, intervention, and diversion programs. It would be beneficial to examine the validity of the current screening tool to determine if adaptations or additions might be necessary or useful. Again, we see the clear need for resource coordination. The county would also benefit from training, education, and enhanced communication throughout the justice system. And training and education should be particularly targeted at police officers.
Did you talk with Susan Garnett and her folks over there about the training that they're currently doing?
Yes.
With them? And so she's supportive of these recommendations? Has she made an opinion or commented on those?
I would not speak for someone else on that, but we have received support through Rainey Heddens at MHMR, and he was our point of contact and chair of that subcommittee. So they were actually very heavily involved in this process. During the pretrial stage, it would be beneficial to evaluate and consider using risk assessment tools to assist in release decisions. This could also be used to start the reentry process by identifying key needs and services available to address those needs. The earlier in the process that reentry concerns can be addressed, the greater the likelihood of success. Other states have models in place for risk assessment. Those include Ohio, Kentucky, and several others. There is a need for increased pretrial service provision to outlying areas, speaking directly about the pretrial services department here. This is also an area where communication and cooperation is clearly needed to achieve successful outcomes. Jail inreach to make sure that all individuals eligible for release have been identified and targeted would also be beneficial. This county has made remarkable progress in addressing recidivism and reentry needs. The emerging joint state and local reentry planning protocols also show great promise. It is important that these efforts focus on evidence-based and data-driven processes and approaches moving forward to achieve maximum benefit. It is important that the community work to develop and regularly update a clear strategic plan for reentry that begins as early in an individual's justice system involvement process as possible. Again, increased cooperation and communication would be beneficial here. There are a lot of good organizations, entities, and individuals doing good work in the county. This would only be enhanced through coordinated efforts. A subcommittee should be formalized to identify and target barriers to successful reentry and reintegration. This needs to include the key focal areas identified during the study: jobs, housing, transportation, and community building. These efforts need to be evaluated regularly to inform data-driven and evidence-based approaches moving forward. Again, a governing for results approach. A key component of this is quality data collection and data sharing. Finally, community empowerment and reintegration efforts are necessary for successful outcomes. We have applied for multiple grants to continue this work and to start addressing some of the recommendations provided in this report. These include the NIJ Early Career Award and the NIJ Du Bois Fellowship, as well as several BJA applications. We will be applying for other grants moving forward as those opportunities come. We are also in the process of planning or starting evaluations of community programs. Tarleton State researchers are focused on continuing to contribute to successful outcomes in Tarrant County. We have been discussing evaluation of the Law Liaison Program with MHMR, and I am currently working on an evaluation of the Coming Up Gang Initiative Program with Fort Worth Police Department. That concludes my presentation. Thank you for your time, Commissioners and Judge.
Any questions?
Could I make some comments, please?
Yes.
Criminal justice reform is an issue whose time has come in this nation, and it is one that is supported pretty well across the board of political and economic groups in this country. Organizations such as the National Chamber of Commerce and even the Koch brothers support criminal justice reform. Getting this study done was something that I kind of initiated and spearheaded as a way for us to assess where we are as a county on the issues of over-incarceration of mentally ill persons in our county jail, which, by the way, is an issue that NACO is highly involved in, and the over-incarceration of minorities and poor people in our county jail system. The statistics that you just saw indicate that we've got a lot of work to do in this county to address these issues. I said at the beginning of this study that county jails were not the best places for mental health services to be delivered. County jails will make you need mental health services. Also, persons should not be in jail just because they're too poor to write a check to get out. There has to be a more equitable system of determining who's in our jail and why they're there. People should be in jail because they are a danger to our community. They're a danger to public safety. They are people who we are really afraid to have in our population. They're not people we're just mad at. So we need to develop a system that allows us to determine who should be in jail and who should not. And there are some best practices that we should be looking at as a county. One, the good doctor has already recommended, which is an aggressive risk assessment tool. We don't do a good job of risk assessment on the front end of incarceration in this community. There are some examples across this country of risk assessment tools that have a very, very high level of predictability about behavior and who needs to be in jail and who does not. In terms of over-incarceration of mentally ill and poor persons and minorities, other communities have used civil citations rather than incarceration as a means of controlling low-level offenders without having to actually incarcerate them. Incarcerating them is not only terribly expensive for the taxpayer, it also, it's been pretty well demonstrated that for every day a person spends incarcerated, the likelihood of their being successfully reintegrated into society goes down. Diminishes. It's counterproductive. Incarceration is counterproductive for those people who are not a danger to public safety and a risk to our society. For mentally ill persons, there is the sequential intercept model, which gives various points of intervening in the process of incarceration and getting services to those persons to divert them from the system. The sequential intercept model goes from like 1 to 7 or 8, but theoretically there is a 0 intercept, which is the prevention point. That's where you try to add services to keep a person from contacting the criminal justice system in the first place. That's something that we should be looking at seriously in this community. And the other thing is mental health diversion centers. We need some place to treat the mentally ill other than the county jail. And I gotta say that the JPS bond program is a step in the right direction because it will create more mental health beds outside of the county jail system. What I would ask as a result of this study is that the Criminal Justice Coordinating Committee, which is the body that has, it's the executive sponsor, I guess, of this program, be directed to continue their research and their work on this over-incarceration issue to the next levels, that the subcommittees be made permanent, that they be asked to continue their work, and that they report back to this court on a periodic basis with recommendations, with findings, with best practices, with tweaking those best practices so that they fit the Tarrant County setting. And let's go forward with a serious effort to bring more justice into the way we approach incarceration. Justice on the front end, justice pre-trial, justice for the mentally ill, justice for the over-incarcerated. That's my request.
I have a couple questions.
Go right ahead.
Short questions.
Certainly.
Just like in anything, there's a cause and there's an effect.
Sure.
Okay? Incarceration, jail, all these justice processes, to me, is an effect. We are dealing with the effect, okay?
Yes.
Have you, this question may be beyond the scope of the study, have you looked into the background information of the inmates to determine the cause, the causes that led them to the current situation? That's my first question. I think it's important to correlate these causes so that we can work with the school districts and community colleges and other non-profit organizations to improve on the effectiveness of all preventative efforts.
Mm-hmm.
That's one question. Second question I have is, have you looked into the organizational structure of county government, city government, police departments, and so forth, to see if there is a need of reorganization, of streamlining, breaking down the silos, identify maybe the top 10 things that we must do to increase the efficiency as well as the effectiveness of these things? So I want to pose those two questions. I don't know if those are part of the scope of the study or not.
So your first question is essentially what provides me with a career. We're constantly looking for causes of involvement in justice system. With respect to this specific study, we did not have the data to look at those causal factors. That is something I would definitely be interested in digging into. I can provide you with resources that do address those areas of concern. There was a federal study group convened, like 5 or 6 years ago, and a book was produced from that with people from all over the nation and actually all over the world coming together to look at early prevention and early causes of later delinquency and adult crime. And I believe I might be off by a word or two on this, but I believe the book is called From Juvenile Delinquency to Adult Crime, and I'm happy to get you guys copies of that book if you're interested, because I was a co-author on one of the chapters where we talked about juvenile activities and juvenile prevention programming and the lasting effects into adulthood and what works in reducing adult criminality that takes place during juvenile years, and that speaks to what you're talking about. The causes of involvement in the justice system are complex and multifaceted, and I think it warrants further research, definitely within the local context.
Have you looked at the impact of early childhood trauma and adverse childhood
There is some research on
experiences? There's considerable research on that across the country, but I hear very little talk of that in this part of the country.
Right. I think, I'm not sure why that is. A lot of that research is taking place in California and a large part of it on the East Coast, so it's kind of bi-coastal in many ways, and then some in Illinois where you had, the emergence of juvenile delinquency programming initially.
In Cook County, yes.
Correct, yes, sir. I'm from Illinois, so I know that system and those programs well.
And my observation has been, I don't know if this is accurate or not.
Sure.
But let me use an analogy. To me, it's like we're having a broken pipe.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? But our effort have always been focusing on mopping up the water on the floor.
Yes, sir.
And we put very little effort in fixing the broken pipe. And then again, there's very little coordination with the people mopping the floor and fixing the pipe. And to me, it's kind of backward. So maybe...
That's an amazing analogy. Yes, that's precisely... I cannot think of a criminologist that I know that would not tell you, yes, that's exactly what we would like to see happen, is address it early on. Most of the early childhood prevention programs, and a lot of them are not criminal justice system based. They're based on things like nurse-family practitioner partnerships and nurse home visits, or access to quality early education opportunities like quality Head Start programs and the like. So absolutely, if you can address the problems that are the causal factors early on, then you're going to reduce the justice system involvement later on.
So if we're going to do a comprehensive analysis and try to restructure, revamp the way we have been doing business, maybe we also focus on the broken pipe as well. That way we don't perpetuate the same model that hasn't worked.
Yes, sir. I think this study focused on the adult population only. It's complicated to study juveniles. However, I've done it before, and would be more than willing to do it again. And I think that would be a very important next step in this process, yes. Does that answer your first question to some degree?
I think so, but it's
an ongoing question, I
think. It's
think.
an extremely complex issue, and it takes everybody working together, really. It's a
Yes, sir.
long-term commitment.
Absolutely.
Otherwise, yes.
Coordination and cooperation and really community investment are some of the key features, I think, of this. And I've seen some of that here.
I think that we can't make any it is a very complicated and very huge issue, and we can't make any real progress if we're going to start out by papering over issues like institutional racism and the criminalization of poverty.
Yes.
Those are two huge contributing factors, and we've got to figure out how to deal with it.
I agree with that statement, to be honest. Before I came here, my research was in Flint and Detroit, Michigan. I've seen it, and I've seen what not addressing those problems can cause. And it's devastating to those committees. With respect to your second question, we did some, I'll use an analogy here. It's like a plane. We did some 30,000-foot analysis of the organizational structure, but we did not do what in my line of work, we would refer to as an institutional ethnography, where we truly dig into how the different pieces are working together. That's something that I think is needed, and I think it would be very beneficial and provide some useful information for you moving forward. So. But those take 2 to 3 years. Just give you a...
I was a criminology major, or I'm sorry,
Awesome.
minor in college. Minor, not major.
Hey, we'll take minors too.
I can remember that far back. And it was 1972.
We're seeing that.
Whatever. Yeah. 40-something years ago.
That's almost half a century.
Yeah, it is. And I was at Sam Houston State, and that was kind of the criminology program at that time in the state of Texas. And because of all the the Texas Department of Corrections, as it was called then. And the issues you bring up are the same issues we talked about in 1972.
It does feel like we've been spinning our wheels for a long time, doesn't it?
Yeah. Thank you.
Any other comments? Thank you very much for being here
Thank you,
and
Doctor,
presenting
for
these
your study.
results.
Thank all of you for the opportunity.
Could we direct the Criminal Justice Coordinating Council to go forward to the next step?
I think I would like for them to come and make a presentation as to that next step, whatever it may be, and just so that we'll have an idea of what the impact is and what we're actually going forward to do.
I think it's very important that we make sure that we understand the problems first. Thoroughly make sure we understand the problems first. And then from there, we can formulate a plan of how we're going to move things forward.
And I know that there are many representatives from, I'm sure the Sheriff's Department, the various DAs and stuff like that on that, but I think.
And MHMR
Yeah,
is back
certainly,
there, and there are
certainly with
community
them.
representatives all over the room.
Well, I think getting together and maybe prioritizing how they feel like we need to go forward.
Andy's right. First, we have to understand the problem. And I would submit that the Criminal Justice Coordinating Council still has work to do in creating an understanding of the problem. It would be premature to ask them to come here and present to us at this time. They've still got research and study and work that they've got to do before they can come and present a cogent plan or even the background to a plan. That's why I would ask that we tell them to keep working.
I certainly want them to keep working on that deal. If that word "keep working" or 2 words translates into something that we're going to be looking at next week in our budget, then I want to know.
No, we are not
Okay.
anywhere near that.
Okay, then yes, definitely, I would say keep working. Anybody object?
Keep working.
No, keep working.
Members of the court, we have one additional item to bring to you, a briefing today. That is an update on public health-related issues. Mr. Tenasia is here to address the court at this time.
Who the mosquitoes are bit now?
Got a travel warning now, don't we?
Actually, before we get started, I would like to make one comment about the conversation that you all just had. It heartens me to see that we're so far ahead in the conversation compared to many other communities. What you just talked about has deep impacts on health, on mental health, on criminal justice. All of the issues that you talked about were related to what we called health equity because we're looking from a health lens. But again, there are equity issues in our community, and they start with those social determinants, including looking at that example that you gave about the pipe being broken. So what we do in programming in a lot of our efforts are what are traditionally called downstream efforts. Here's a problem, let's go fix it. But what we really now need to start looking at is upstream. Why do we continue to have this problem? What are things we can do in our society as a social investment to change that? And that will improve the health of our community, not only just the criminal justice side of things. So with that comment, I'd like to switch gears and bring your attention to mosquito issues. I want to brief you really quick on what's going on with Zika first before we get into West Nile. We have about 13 confirmed cases of Zika in our community, And in Texas, we have about 90 confirmed cases. But I can tell you, I'm a co-chair of a Zika work group for our local health department organization called TECHO. And the numbers that we have are a little bit further than what the state official numbers are, because there's a data lag. And we, the local health department leaders, come together almost on a weekly basis to discuss what's going on in our community. So the numbers are actually over 100 in Texas. And then nationwide, if you look at the picture, CDC is reporting that there are about 1,658 cases nationally that are reported. And again, that data lags at least 2 to 3 weeks, so you can expect that there is a lot more. If you look at Puerto Rico, it's spiraled out of control in Puerto Rico. It's about 4,750 cases right now on that small island. And most of that is local transmission through mosquitoes. They haven't been really able to get a handle on that situation. They're still struggling with a lot of that. And now, coming back to continental United States, we're starting to see some of those problems emerge. Just recently, Miami-Dade County was in the news. First, they had 4 localized transmission cases confirmed, spilled over to Broward County. Now there's a cluster of 14 cases. Now, what they've done is they've kind of demarcated
local
transmission, mosquito-borne illness, not sexual transmission, not travel-related, mosquito-borne Zika virus illness. And they've demarcated an area of about 1 square mile where they've really intensified efforts going door to door, trying to educate the people, draw some samples from them to test for any asymptomatic individuals. I mean, they're really putting the pedal to the metal here and getting the work done in that community. But the aftermath of having localized transmission is what we really worry about. So now, the mosquitoes in that area, our understanding is are transmitting that disease. So there are issues of travel advisory being posted. Now they've targeted that 1 square mile area, so that's good. But if it spreads out, Miami-Dade County is a large metro area just like we are. And there's travel advisories, especially for pregnant women who are advised against travel to that area. There's also blood donation issues from 1 square mile area right now. There are no blood donations that are going to be able to be accepted into blood banks. And if it spills over, as you can see, the ripple effect continues. So that's why we try to advise our community and coach our community on mosquito control practices. And the issue becomes twofold. The second half of the story I'm going to present about West Nile. But before we get started, I just wanted to give you a brief update that we have 3 confirmed cases now of West Nile in our community. The third one.
Wait. Go back to Zika and the locally generated cases in Miami-Dade and Broward counties. What are they doing about the mosquitoes? I know they're going door to door dealing with the people.
Right.
But what are they doing about the mosquitoes?
Right. So, there's a lot of aggressive response going on in that area. I mean, a general understanding of a public health response has been that it needs to be on foot, knocking door to door in people's backyards. I'd have to, check with Miami-Dade County if they have changed anything in particular in response to now localized transmission. But the national plan has been, that's CDC approved, is that you as a local community must take on that effort and go to these individual property owners' homes, educate them about mosquito breeding sites, and then if you find any mosquito breeding going on that property, then you work with the appropriate either that local municipality or the local health department or a private vendor to take care of that issue and fog that backyard if you actually see mosquito activity and catch them in the traps. So I'm not quite sure if they're at that stage, but my expectation would be yes, that they are probably taking all those measures that we talk about, because that's the nationally
Would you
agreed
reach
plan.
out to your colleagues in those 2 counties?
I will do that, absolutely. In fact, I was at a NACHO conference recently, and I was moderating a session on Zika, and the lady who's the health director from Miami-Dade County had to call in and Skype in for her session because she was held back because of this emerging situation. So we knew that this is kind of breaking out, and I'll reach out to her. I know her, and we'll find out what they're doing on the ground in terms of a response.
Thank you.
But as one of the things we talked about last night at the Mayor's Council was that, as I said, they will spray the neighborhood, but that's the front of the home. You really need to look at spraying the back, either a fog or something that you distribute with water out of the hose, and go ahead and say not frequently, but at least occasionally.
So two different issues. The regular discussion that we have about spraying and the street trucks going by, and they usually get better coverage on the front of the home and a little bit lesser coverage on the back because the building actually blocks. That's a strategy we typically employ with West Nile, and it's done in response to positive mosquito traps. So if there are positive mosquito traps in that area, mosquito pools come back with West Nile virus, then we recommend that at least one time they go out and do the spraying. If a repeated positive comes back for a couple, 3 weeks, then the recommendation is to go ahead and repeat that spraying 3 nights in a row so we can get better coverage in that area. The Zika side of response is triggered by human cases, and it is very aggressive. It's very different than the West Nile response. They actually go on the property on foot and investigate on the property about mosquito breeding sites, and they actually go in the front and the back and treat the property and a 150-yard radius around that area, so that sometimes includes multiple properties. In fact, one of the, response done in Tarrant County by a partner city included 36 homes in a circle drive at a great expense. But they did a great job in actually doing that work. In fact, it was in South Lake, and they did a tremendous work to get to those homeowners, get them to agree to let them to come on the property and do the work in their backyards. So that's why Zika response is actually very resource intensive and actually very expensive because of the difference in how we need to respond in terms of an emerging situation. And the idea behind that aggressive response is so that we don't have to deal with localized transmission. It should not get a hold in our mosquito population. Any other questions before I get started? I know, I'm taking 5 minutes already.
Yeah, go ahead and start.
Yes, sir. So the backdrop is that we have 3 confirmed cases of West Nile in Tarrant County. We're quite honestly just getting started in the human season of West Nile. They're all 3 neuroinvasive. Officially, you might have heard only about 1 in the news, and the reason was we switched last year to sentinel event notification for West Nile and West Nile-like diseases, and the reason for that was they're now here to stay in our community. They're sort of routine. There were a lot of other emerging infections that were coming out. We were dealing with Ebola, enterovirus D68. We were dealing with measles. We were dealing with Zika. So all of these, what are unusual diseases, take up a lot of time. So if you continue to talk about regular things, sometimes the message gets diluted. So we switched to sentinel event notification, first case, first death, first whatever in that scenario. So if you all haven't heard in the news, it's because of that. But there are 3 cases.
Where are the 3 cases located?
They're all over the county. As you know, I'm limited to say what I can say about where they are, but what I can tell you is there are all 3 neuroinvasive.
The street address. Just kind of...
Some of our larger cities do get them. That's usually what we see as a trend. And I can also tell you, and this is sort of unusual this year, 2 of them were neuroinvasive in a younger age group, which is atypical. Normally, we see them in elderly individuals who have other underlying health conditions.
Give me quadrants of the county. If that's the best you can do.
I'll check and let you know what precinct they are. I will send that update with precinct information.
Thank you.
I'll do that. And then what I'm here to talk about today is actually the mosquito scenario that's building up in our community. We have been doing a surveillance effort in our county for several years, but it really got beefed up after 2012. In 2013, the county health department bought and distributed approximately 220 mosquito traps to work with our partner municipal jurisdictions. And some of them added their own traps onto that number. But what they do is on a weekly basis, they go out and set out these traps, and then they collect mosquito samples and bring them back to the health department. That's a general statement. Some communities actually have partner, either private vendors or they work with a university. But most of them bring them back to the health department. And then our entomology staff, that are 3 in number, they actually sit down and sort through all of those mosquito samples on a weekly basis to figure out which ones are qualified for testing. And then those samples go to our laboratory for testing. And then they provide results on a weekly basis, sometimes as in the heat of the season, almost 2 times a week. Those results come out every week. And the positive mosquito pools then are communicated back to those municipal jurisdictions. In unincorporated areas, of course, the health department handles that response along with the precinct staff. But those jurisdictions, the recommendation is that they go out and do the spraying after appropriate notification of the community. What we're noticing this year, if you look at the solid red line, is a very early steep increase in number of positive pools coming back per week. In fact, in some weeks we're getting more than 40 positive pools, which is very high, and also the steep increase is very early in time compared to the previous years. The previous years, 2015, we saw a steep increase somewhere in middle to end of July, peaking in August, but we're almost trending 5 to 6 weeks ahead of time if you look at our current graph. In the percentage positive, what happened to the, oops, did I lose control of that?
You lost control a long time ago.
Oh, there we go. Okay, thank you. The percentage positive number is also very high. You might be looking at the dotted black line. That was actually year 2012. And the reason that data looks a little skewed and very high, because pre-2012, or even in that year, we didn't have a very vast network of surveillance traps. So we were testing almost like 600 pools a year, and that was a heavy mosquito activity year with a lot of human cases. So that number looks very skewed. But it's kind of an outlier. If you look at the other years, 2013, 14, 15, they're more comparable to 2016. Because in those years, on average, we were testing anywhere between 4,000 to 5,000 mosquito pools every year. So the percentage positive actually looks more accurate here. But again, the key message is that we're trending ahead several weeks in time with high percentage positive pools. This chart looks at the infection rate of mosquitoes. So now this gets real technical. There's one particular mosquito that we're looking for. There are others that do spread the disease, but this is sort of our predominant vector in our area, which differs from other states and other parts of the country. But in our area, it's the Culex quinkifasciatus, or our staff will call it the quinks. Easy to remember. They have a formula that figures out, based on how many samples came through, how many mosquitoes actually were carrying the disease. So the number is approaching almost 14 or 15 per 1,000 mosquitoes tested, which is very high. It's actually a new high for our community in Tarrant County in the recent years. And again, the graph is trending several weeks ahead of time. And that's a key message that you're going to see almost in every slide, that we have more time for these infected mosquitoes to bite humans and cause disease. A vector index slide here. It's a sort of a summary slide of all these different indices that we look at. It looks at the vector species composition, how much species population density was in those traps, what proportion of those identified vectors were actually infected with the West Nile virus. And again, the key message is it's trending ahead in time, and it has made a new peak compared to the recent 2 to 3 years. So we are in a heavy West Nile activity year in the mosquitoes in our community. And this is just the average number of mosquito trapped in those traps, the Culex mosquitoes. These charts.
Have we peaked?
It's hard to predict where the peak is going to be because we're so early in time, but what we're seeing are peak-like activity because it's trending very high, and over the last couple of weeks it's kind of stabilizing. It's not really coming down. It's there. So we could go higher, we could go lower, but we're at the previous year's peaks or higher. So our hope is that this is kind of the peak time of that activity. But what that tells you in terms of in human activity, and it's kind of hard to predict every year what would happen, but if you look at the previous 3-4 years of data, which I'm going to show you here real quick, in high mosquito activity years, there's a very clear correlation that the human case peak occurs in 2 to 3 weeks, which makes sense that mosquitoes bite individuals, a couple of weeks of incubation period, and then you start to see human cases, which is starting to occur now, and in our neighboring communities as well. And just kind of look at a big picture, this issue is primarily focused right now in north central Texas. If you look at the entire state, they're not seeing this. We're seeing more activity in Tarrant, Dallas, and Denton counties, but not in other parts of the state. They're trending quite a far behind us. So this is very centralized in north central Texas. So 2 to 3 week lag, 2012 was a good example. 13 was a low activity year, so there was not a good correlation. 14 had somewhat of a correlation, and I'm missing actually a 15 slide, which had a good correlation because it was, again, a high mosquito activity year. And the next slide, actually, if I can get it there, it's a show of how we're comparing to the mosquito activity to our human cases. And we're only showing 2 human cases on the slide because the third one got confirmed last night. But we're seeing a good correlation with mosquito activity this year as well. And then the final slide here,
That may have been
hold it down. Okay, there we are. This is a map of our county with all the trap locations, as much as we can show on the map because it gets a little squished and some of these overlap on each other. But most of the positive mosquito pools and positive traps are highlighted in red. And what that tells you is that it's pretty much all across our county, and it's spread out, very widespread. So the typical response that we have that, we need to, ask our partner communities, first of all, it's an integrated mosquito control. We start educating the public and our partner communities about source reduction. We tell them to get rid of standing water, and take care of any standing water issues, any block drains that there may be. We also advise them to do larviciding, which is a good control measure. And then finally, we ask them to do adult mosquito spraying in response to positive mosquito pools. Seems like that's there, but it's not having the intended effect that we wanted it to have. So the final strategy, and that's a good discussion we should have today on the table here, is the option for aerial spraying. Obviously, it's a very expensive option to consider. The agreement that we have in place is $1.89 per acre for spray. If you look at the entire county, you could be looking at potentially almost $1 million per spray, and the recommendation would be at least 2 to 3 times over a span of 1 to 2 weeks to see if it has the intended effect. And it might be hard to get buy-in from all our communities. So the second option that I would present to you today is to look at all these positive mosquito pools, and let's chart a course of about a 1 mile wide berth around these areas. And if we can get buy-in from all these communities, then that would be an intended spray zone with a lesser cost, potentially about $350,000 ballpark per spray, and you're looking at a total of approximately $1 million if we do 2 to 3 sprays. So with that, if you have any questions, I would be more than happy to answer in that regard.
I would suggest that you might do one of your infamous YouTube deals on, and talk with them about spraying the front yard, backyard, whatever, what to use, the frequency of using those things. And as you've mentioned, you really don't want to be doing it every day because you're likely to build up a even stronger mosquito that is resistant to these things. But I think something that somebody could click on and see, okay, here's what we could do as an individual homeowner.
Right. So, my apologies for not addressing that earlier. This topic that we are talking about is more for the individual homeowner. They can do additional things now that we're seeing a activity that's very high. Typically, we try to drive them towards source reduction, getting rid of standing water, leaves blocking their drains and all those type of things, and also towards larviciding, because those are the best strategies to utilize by a homeowner. But when we're seeing this high of a mosquito activity, there are additional things they can do. There are these clip-on things that are available to put on your water hose and spray in your backyard. These are chemicals that are available. You can spray them on your shrubbery or in your backyard on the grass, and they tend to reduce because they leave a residual chemical on the landscape. They tend to reduce mosquito activity for 8 to 10 days. But again, we say that with caution because we don't want this to be overutilized as a strategy, and then we end up with mosquitoes that are resistant to these chemicals because all the susceptible ones would have died and only the resistant mosquitoes breed. So we really don't want that as a standard option, but in high activity situations like today, certainly that's an option for homeowners to consider. And there are also other tools available. There are these little fogging machines or equipment that is available. If you have like a tree canopy in the back, a bunch of trees, you can certainly put those underneath and they'll fog up and get any mosquitoes in those tree canopies and under shrubbery as well. Again, good options for homeowners to utilize in high activity times like these.
Hypothetically, if we were to go to large area spraying, would the same chemical kill both the Culex and the mosquito that causes Zika?
Yes, that's my understanding, and I have technical folks here in the back. If I'm mistaken, please correct me, but my understanding is that that's going to be the case.
It's actually the time that's sprayed. Culex are nocturnal, whereas the 80s are diurnal.
Is this I want one of those people who count the mosquitoes.
Yes. Nina Dacko is our vector control supervisor. She's a trained entomologist, and she's the source of a lot of the knowledge that I share with you all. So please feel free to ask questions.
All right.
What are you doing?
He's my savior. No. So to answer your question is these are two different types of mosquitoes that we're battling. As he mentioned, there's different activities to treat for these mosquitoes. There's also different time periods to treat for these mosquitoes. So aerial application, when you're fighting Culex, which are the type that carry West Nile virus, you're going to more go for nocturnal because that's when they're active. 80s, on the other hand, are more diurnal. And I also would...
Excuse me, diurnal?
Daytime, meaning that they're active in the day. So, I mean, it's two different time periods in which you'd be battling these different types of mosquitoes. I also would precaution saying that you want to mix the two things together. We need to kind of keep Zika and all that stuff separate from West Nile because then there's not going to be a clear picture on what you're trying to accomplish. Does that make sense?
We're trying to accomplish dead mosquitoes.
More power to that.
And I heard Dr. Burgess this morning at a town hall meeting up in Keller compare this kind of to, I guess several years ago we had the screwworm fly, and the way we defeated that was to, I guess, create a sterile one that killed the female. Or that basically...
The sterile males were unable to reproduce with the females of the primary screwworm, yes.
Remember it.
It was killing all the deer in Texas.
Well, they were worried about the cows, but I understand.
Cows and deer, yeah.
So why can't we do that with the mosquitoes?
Right. So, in fact, there is a company, and I don't know if they've approached any of you because they were approaching county judges and other elected officials in other parts of the state. There is a company that has come up with something similar. It's actually a genetically modified mosquito, and they have different avenues, but it is under FDA review at this point for utilization in the United States. So they have utilized that in Brazil. We don't know the data at this point, how the effects were, but that option is coming up in the horizon in the near future if FDA clears that.
So when you're saying that we're going to fight it on as two different mosquitoes, then if I am spraying my backyard or fogging the backyard, do I need to do that at different times of the day? Do I need to use the same liquid or fog type thing, and do I just need to do it maybe in the morning and then also in the evening, and maybe it's still 2 weeks apart, but do I need to hit it twice a day?
Good question. It's actually a little bit complex because the backyard spray that you use is residual, meaning that you spray it on surfaces and it lasts for a while. Therefore saying any mosquito that lands on those surfaces are going to die. When you fog, it's something that only lasts in the air at that time when the mosquitoes are out. So if you're going to fog, that would have to be while the mosquitoes are active. Now, I should also say that during dawn and dusk hours, any mosquito that's out there is going to be biting. So both.
I've never seen one when I get out in the backyard. They bite.
Yes. So I mean, it's a little complex, but it is similar chemicals. Okay, I'm not going to say they're the same chemical, but they're similar. They're in the same class. They have the same mode of action or method of kill, if you will. So they're similar. I mean, the chemicals that are purchased by homeowners are even similar to what we use. So just keep that in mind as well.
Include that on your YouTube.
Yes, sir, we'll try.
Any known side effect to insects, to animals, birds, and so forth on the spraying chemical?
Okay,
Aerial
so
spray
again,
chemical?
that's kind of a complex issue. It really depends on whether you're doing the fogging, which that's why we like to utilize these fogs at night for the West Nile virus, because we know that our pollinators, such as bees and things of that sort, are not out and active. They're back in their hives, so they're not being exposed to these chemicals. I will precaution people that there is an increased risk if you're doing residual spray, meaning that you're spraying things that the mosquitoes are going to rest on. If the bees also rest in the same area, there is a chance that they will be damaged. So I mean, that is a risk that is with residual spray. However, we always try to precaution. Experienced professionals will not spray down things like flowering plants where those bees are more likely to be than mosquitoes. So there are just a few things that licensed individuals are well aware of when it comes to residual versus non-residual type treatment.
The video's getting longer.
I know, and that's why, the scientific information is very complex, and we try to make it very easy to understand, as you're going to, see the messages that we put out in the past, because it is very complex. And a lot of times you'll hear different sides of the story. Oh, these folks are out to get the bees. Well, no, that's not the case. I mean, if we utilize the appropriate methods, then, the risk is minimized. Anytime you do anything, I'm breathing the air, there's risk. So that's going to happen. But, you have to balance the risk of disease versus the risk of strategies that we're recommending, and you have to, at that point, make an educated judgment on that.
When you refer to bees, does that include yellow jackets and wasps?
No. I'm actually referring to our pollinators
Well, that's what
specifically.
I thought. So good. I don't mind killing yellow jackets and wasps. I just want to be clear about that.
Any other question that we may answer at this point?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Benny.
I want to bring one of them sorters in here. Do you actually sort?
Yes,
So you have to look in this microscope and see 5,000 of these little boogers
that is correct.
a day and determine, one, what of the 39 or 40 types they are, and then if they're male or female.
41 actually, but yes.
Thank you.
Are you a mosquito secretary?
What an exciting job. We need to be paying them more.
That's what you get when you're an epidemiologist.
We have an audience participation today. Ms. Jenkins, come on down. You know the routine. Tell us who you are.
Thank you so much for this opportunity. My name is Laura Jenkins, 8101 Canyon Oak Drive, North Richland Hills, Texas. 11 years ago, my son, Roy Adams Jr., was wrongly convicted. He's been in jail 11 years. On August the 5th, 2016, he will have been away from his family and his home for 11 years, wrongfully convicted. He was sentenced to 12 and a half years for intoxication manslaughter for the 2004 death of Grapevine police officer Darren Metlin. Without diminishing condolences to the Metlin family, our son was not drunk driving, but instead had an epilepsy seizure. Our heart breaks for the Metlin family. Roy's dad was a police officer, and his heart not only broke for the Metlin family, but he also broke for his son, who was involved in this justice system that he'd been working in for 35 years. We believe that Tarrant County Prosecutor Richard Alpert was the ringleader of this hypocrisy of justice. Our son has been denied parole 6 times, supposedly because he will not admit that he is guilty. Just have a little quote here from Diane Beckham, who is the senior staff counsel, was for the TDCAA, which is the Texas Department of, district attorneys or something like that. And she says that no matter what your set of facts, Richard has a great idea for how to turn them to an advantage. And he put this quote in his book that he published in 2007. I was really pleased to hear today from DA Mrs. Wilson that her department will be going through ethics training. And I also was really pleased to hear that Tarrant County is going to be working on criminal justice and looking at how this takes place in our county. Every first Monday, I am downtown in front of the Tarrant County Tim Carey Criminal Justice System. First Monday, first working Monday. And I must say to you that I am welcomed by the people that work in that building. And those people that work in that building, they nod their heads. They know that what has taken place with my son was not right. And they work in that building. They work for the Tarrant County Justice System. So when we give license to people who have done things like Richard Alpert, it not only affects my son, but it affects everybody around that. I get encouraged to come back. I get encouraged to say, you hang in there, Mom. Not only from people in that building, but from people who walk around on the area, in the street. Because I give out, my goal is, and I do every time, I give out 100 flyers. They come back to me, some of them email me. When you do injustice to one person, it's not just one person. So thank you.
Thank you for being here today. If there's nothing else at this time, then we will recess our open meeting to proceed to close to discuss items exempted under section 551.071, 072, 074, 076, and 08. Having returned from our closed session, we'll now address the following matters. Mr. Mays?
Thank you, Your Honor. We could go to the Administrator's section, item 903. This is action concerning cause number 096-272930-14, Michelle Charles versus United Healthcare. There is an audience participation.
Welcome.
Thank you. Commissioners and Judge, I appreciate y'all taking the time to hear and obviously be here. My name is Michelle Charles. I'm a corrections officer at the Tarrant County Jail. I've been in law enforcement for 10 years. 5 of that has been here with Tarrant County. I have my 5-year pin that I just received in April. Plan on being back to get my 25. I was injured in a near head-on collision, hit by a drunk driver on my way to work, which obviously doesn't involve my job or Tarrant County. However, it did result in a serious back injury. I had to have surgery. They removed bone from my hip and installed metal into my spine, as well as more bone to do a fusion. I'm limited as far as how far I can bend and do some other things. Not my job, I promise. I went to work every day. I did preventive things to try to avoid the surgery. None of that worked. During the course of this time, I paid my co-pays, I paid my premiums, I had to buy a new vehicle, all of this out of my own pocket because I was in litigation with the other driver. I was fortunate in that I had a little bit of a savings account. It's gone. It is gone. I finally gave up a year after the incident and did have the back surgery, and immediate on recovery, I was back at work as quickly as possible. I love my job, but I feel like I have financed this accident. I understand the health insurance has as well, but I paid my premiums to make sure I was covered so that I can stay healthy and I can go to work and I can do the job I need to do. And I feel like the way this situation has come out to be, I've been victimized by someone else who chose to drink and drive, and now I'm being victimized again by not having my coverage that I need. I need to replenish my savings. I ended up having to buy an 03 vehicle because that's all I had the money for at the time. So I beg that you all would consider settling with me on something other than 100%. And in your own statement, bear in mind that Tarrant County is a family. And if you had a family member that had paid for their insurance premiums and had paid for all of their insurance things and then had to turn around and pay the insurance company back all the money that you received, I think you would understand. Thank you.
Please, the court.
Might you go ahead and give us your name and address just so we can have that?
My name is Tim Brandenburg, and I'm an attorney with the law office of Rocky Walton over in Arlington. And our office has represented Michelle in the action against the drunk driver that hit her. Many people in Texas only carry a $30,000 insurance policy. We were fortunate the drunk driver had a $100,000 insurance policy. As you're aware, Michelle's had a great deal of medical bills that they were paid in large part by the county. $83,000 was paid by the county, and she had an additional $15,000 that she had to pay out of pocket for co-pays and deductible and all of that. As you're aware, the law changed as of January the 1st of 2014, and the Texas legislature had examined this subrogation right by insurance companies and governmental entities, and they found that it was unfair for these entities to take the lion's share or even all of a settlement. And so in 2014, on January the 1st, they limited it. And basically at that point, no insurance company or governmental entity can recover more than 1/3 of the total settlement. So if Michelle's wreck had happened after January the 1st of 2014, her wreck happened on Valentine's Day. If it, instead of 2012 Valentine's Day, we wouldn't be here today. The county would get rightfully, it would recover $33,333, which would be 1/3 of that settlement. Unfortunately, the wreck happened before 2014. Now there's a controversy as to what the applicable law is about this pre-2014, which is why this litigation is going on. But this is a case where Mickey will not be compensated if the Tarrant County chooses to take the full $83,000. She will not make any recovery. Now our firm will work with her on attorney's fees, doing reductions and things like that, but she's still going to be out of pocket. I've been doing this for quite some time, and I can say that even if Michelle, but she goes by Mickey, even if she was to get the full $100,000, that would not really compensate her for the misery that she's been through. I've had the same back surgery, and it's a nightmare. And we're asking that this court, that you consider what's fair and what's just, and that you see it in your hearts to see that Mickey can make a recovery out of this case. It's your discretion. You have that ability. The law says you're entitled to up to 100%, but it doesn't say you have to take 100%. And so we're asking that this court consider this. Consider fairness and equity and make a decision, whatever that decision could be, whatever it is. I know that you genuinely want the best for your employees, and Mickey has been a good employee. And so we're asking you to reduce your subrogation amount. And you can reduce it to whatever percent you would like. And that's what we're here asking for. If you have any questions, I'll be glad to answer them.
Thank you very much for coming out today, and we'll confer with our attorneys. And then someone will be getting back with you. That's great.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Michelle, thank you very much for coming in today. We appreciate that.
That's all we have this time.
Okay, and you'll remember that we're closing in memory of Dan Mohawk, and then also Art Berger. We're not going to do that. There's some more information that we've got to find out to make sure we're complying with the law before we do that. So, we're adjourned.